Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about reference geometries in Solidworks. So reference geometries, what it does is it can help you create planes, axes, coordinate systems, or points. So planes especially is useful if you're trying to create certain features like the swept boss base, the lofted boss base, or the boundary boss base, or if you want to do any of these other features on a different plane. It's always useful to create additional planes. So we'll take a look at how to actually do that. So to make our lives easier, let's just create a box first. Let me center this. Okay, so we'll create a simple box and we could go ahead and start adding planes to this. So if I click the plane tool, you notice that there's a new plane that showed up. So I could offset my plane. So this could be a additional plane that I may want to sketch on that's not on the existing surface. I could do other things too, like let's say I delete this. Maybe I want it to be some special angle. Here I could add an angle here. So I could add a special angle to this. That's another thing you could do. So there's a lot of different things you could do with planes and how you orient them. And don't be afraid if you don't know what these mean. Sometimes I get confused as well. But the best way to do is just click and try, and then if it doesn't work, try something else. Okay, so you could have like vertices, for example. Like, see, right now I'm doing something like this. Maybe you have, oh, so the angle here doesn't work, then you know that you don't want to do that. Okay, so you just go ahead and play around and see what works and what doesn't work. And then once you play with more of these, you'll get a better idea of, what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. But really, ultimately, what it comes down to when you're designing these planes is you want to see like what are all the degrees of freedom available, right? So um, here here you can see that that's not really working too well. So there's a little bit of trial and error, and then worst case is if you're trying to do a very special plane orientation and you really don't know how, then you could just Google it. Okay, but the ones I showed you are probably the core things that you'll need. Is you'll offset a plane off of an existing face, or you want to angle something. So those two are probably the most common ones. And then for an axis, you could do other things too, like a point and a face plane. You have like a 2 points vertices, you have two planes. So there's a bunch of options, right? You could also just select an edge and you could create an axis. You could, drag this and so on. Um, there's like the point and plane option. So maybe perhaps I add a point somewhere like right about here. So I have a point and maybe this point and this plane I want to create another axis. So now I was using a point and a face plane option. So you can see I made an axis here, right? So there's a bunch of ways you could create these planes or axes. You just got to see like what you're trying to do exactly and kind of figure out how to do it based on the different options that they give you. Okay, so for like a coordinate system, I could add like a coordinate system here, for example, at this point. So you could go ahead and choose the point here, and you can see I have the axis pointing in these directions. And if for some reason you don't like the orientation, you could update it. So maybe you want the x-axis in this direction. You could flip it by clicking this. This will flip your axes, and you could just play around with it and see where you want your coordinate system. So it's sometimes nice to have a different coordinate system, especially if you want to make like a measuring from that coordinate system. Those are all some useful things. And then here, notice that when I created a part, there's a center of mass that showed up. So that's another reference geometry that can be useful. So that's what that is, the center of mass. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up all the reference geometries. The mate reference, we'll probably see that more when we go into assembly, so we won't worry about that now. But at least this will get you started in understanding reference geometries, and then in terms of how you use it later on, more of these features that we'll deal with, you'll get to see. Okay, so if you found this video helpful, give a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.